Welcome to Devotional Drops, where we explore the richness of Scripture and how it speaks to our lives today. In this episode, we're reflecting on being free in God. You know what's fascinating? Studies show that 92% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. And it's not just about lack of willpower. Today, we're exploring why breaking free from patterns is so much deeper than just trying harder.
That really connects to this profound concept we're diving into about what true freedom actually means, doesn't it?
Exactly right. There's this powerful quote from Jesus where he says, "Everyone who sins is a slave to sin." And when you really think about it, that's describing something far more fundamental than just making bad choices.
Hmm. So we're talking about something more systemic, like being caught in an invisible prison we can't break out of on our own?
Right. And here's what's really interesting. Research shows that even when people understand their destructive patterns, knowing about them only changes behavior about 15% of the time. It's like being trapped in quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink.
That reminds me of a story I heard recently about someone who struggled with deep seated bitterness after betrayal. They described it as feeling physically weighted down, like wearing chains they couldn't remove.
Well, you know what's fascinating about that? The text makes this crucial distinction between being a slave and being a son or daughter. It's suggesting that true freedom isn't just about behavior modification. It's about a fundamental identity shift.
So it's more about transformation than just trying harder?
Exactly. And here's where it gets really practical. Studies in neuroplasticity show that lasting change happens when we alter our core beliefs about ourselves. It's like rewiring the brain's operating system instead of just closing problematic programs.
That's such a powerful metaphor. And it connects to what you were saying about identity being the key to transformation.
And look at how this plays out in real life. When people approach change from an identity perspective rather than just behavior modification, success rates increase by over 300%. It's like the difference between trying to hold your breath underwater versus learning to breathe in a new way.
That's fascinating because it suggests freedom isn't about absence of constraints, but about operating from a completely different paradigm.
You know what's really interesting? The text talks about this concept of abiding or remaining connected to truth. Modern psychology is just catching up to this. They call it integration, where new patterns become automatic through consistent practice.
Well, that takes so much pressure off, doesn't it? Instead of expecting instant transformation, we can focus on small, consistent steps.
Exactly. And here's something surprising. Research shows that small changes, maintained consistently, create more lasting transformation than dramatic short-term efforts. It's like the difference between crash dieting and changing your eating habits permanently.
That really brings everything full circle. We're not just talking about breaking bad habits, but about fundamental transformation.
And here's the key insight. Studies show that people who approach change from this deeper perspective of identity transformation are 5 times more likely to maintain positive changes long term. It's not just about what we do, it's about who we're becoming.
That's such a hopeful message to end on, that no matter what patterns seem to hold us captive, there's always a path to freedom.
Thank you all for joining us today on Devotional Drops. Until next time, keep seeking true freedom, not just in what you do, but in who you're becoming.